Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the World of Sports podcast. This is episode number 74. My name is Diego Sandoval. I'm here with my co-host, Logan Ring. Logan, say what's up to the people.
Sup, everybody?
It's been a minute, like a
It
minute.
has.
I think it's been, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a
Yeah, I
month?
think so.
The last episode we did, we talked about MLB opening day. So it's like a little over a month.
The Cavs weren't eliminated yet, so it's been a while.
And then we gave our NBA awards picks. And now we're back. A lot has happened. I guess we can just recap. There's been a month of the MLB season. I guess first what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about a month into the Major League Baseball season. Our biggest kind of surprises, disappointments so far. Everything will be put with the asterisk that it's 1 month into the season. And as we all know, Major League Baseball is a grind. It's a long year, and so you can't really have full takeaways after a month, but there's definitely a lot to talk about. And then we're going to go over to the NBA and talk about the current, right now it's the conference semifinal series. One just ended last night. The Heat beat the Sixers. But we're kind of going to give our general takes on what's going on around the playoffs right now. And then our predictions moving forward. So let's see. Let's just talk for a little bit about what's happened since we've been gone. The play-in happened. The first round happened. Any surprises that you remember there? The Nets have got swept.
Yeah.
That's a surprise. I didn't see. I had the Celtics winning that series, but anyone who said they thought it was going to be a sweep would be lying to you.
Yeah. I had it in 7.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was the first game that we got, it was a buzzer beater by Jason Tatum. Could have easily gone the Nets' way. I think the 3 other games, it was a under double-digit deficit total for the 3 games. So it was close every single game, but I mean, the Celtics played just insane defense. I've never seen Kevin Durant play that bad against anyone. And it's kind of like the one superstar you think, it's up to him how well he does, where he can shoot over everyone. He just does what he wants. Defenses can try their best, but he's 7-1 or whatever and can just shoot over anyone. He played awful. He turned the ball over. Yeah, they played great defense. Jason Tatum was by far the best player in that series, way over Kevin Durant. And yeah, it could have gone 5 or 6 for sure if just a couple things went differently, but the Celtics were clearly better than them, and the Nets have a lot of questions going forward because I think there's definitely hostility, even if nobody's going to say it. I mean, I don't think anybody wants Kyrie to just be able to do what he wants, because the last few seasons we've seen that that's just not something that you can count on, is him being available. And that's not even injuries. He's injury prone, but also it's just everything else. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but definitely a disappointment so far between those two pairing up.
Yeah, it's crazy to think beginning of the season, we were all kind of gearing up for Lakers Nets, and Lakers don't even make the playoffs, and Nets
no one won in the
first round. The rest of the East was pretty, cookie cutter. It wasn't. The Heat beat the Hawks. The Sixers beat the Raptors. There were a couple of good games sprinkled out throughout that series. And the Bucks beat the Bulls. The Bulls were kind of frauds all year, to be honest. Never really beat a good team. In the West, the Pelicans made it a little bit interesting against the Suns without Devin Booker.
That was fun.
But the Suns pulled it out. Mavericks Jazz, I feel like that was the series that I just never watched, because it was okay, it's Mavericks Jazz, 2 teams that are just known for not getting out of the first or second round. The Mavericks obviously won that one. The Jazz, I think, are on their way to blowing it up. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I feel like it's time.
Yeah. Well, I liked seeing Luka go past the first round. He played some really good series against the Clippers. It's just the Mavs were no match for them. He didn't really have anybody to step up with him. The bubble series, it went 7, I think, and then he put up 45 and 14 and still lost. It was not on him. So I'm glad he's moving on. And we'll talk about that later with the Suns, but that's a good series too. But the Jazz, the way the roster is built is Rudy Gobert is their entire defense, and every single other player doesn't know how to play defense. Royce O'Neal is all right, but Rudy Gobert gets exposed in the playoffs defensively because nobody else on the team can guard anyone. And I want to see him on a different team. He's definitely got his flaws. Offensively, he can't do really anything with the ball unless you give it to him really close to the basket. And he's really good there, but I mean, you need some offensive moves. But like this roster, it's not very well constructed to maximize Rudy Gobert. And their defense was still really good with him. So I think they're going to trade him. I think they would probably more likely move on from him than Donovan Mitchell, but I could see both too, because honestly, I don't think there's any trade you can make where it's Donovan Mitchell and whatever you get back from Rudy Gobert, and now they're a championship team. Like I just don't really know. But that being said, I think that they could still try it. But I'm just excited for this team to move on from these two because it just hasn't worked out. Every single time in the playoffs, we know this is going to happen, and it happened again.
Yeah. The Warriors handled the Nuggets. That wasn't really that close of a series. And then the Grizzlies beat the Timberwolves and it was an entertaining series. Both teams I feel like are just like at the point in their organization where they're like young and they really don't care. Like they both are kind of just playing however they want to play. They're not really worried about anything else. They're just trying to go out there and win, which is good to see because I feel like sometimes you see in the NBA like this repetition of like the veteran teams or whatever it may be that are kind of like very like, you know, cookie cutter almost in a way for a winning team, which don't get me wrong, it works. But then you have the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves, who are these two young teams that are just kind of playing like they're young teams and maybe not, you know, caring as much about whatever it may be, the unwritten rules of basketball, but they're just like playing. And it's fun to watch. And the Grizzlies obviously won that series 4-2.
Yeah, that was a really fun series and two young teams, but you could see how coaching and just team mentality really affects you because the Timberwolves, like they talk about it on Inside the NBA on TNT, like Shaq and Chuck and all those guys. Like they think the Timberwolves are the dumbest team, and I agree with that. They make some stupid mistakes. They play a lot of hero ball. They got up by 20 plus points in multiple games and then blew it. The Timberwolves should have won this series, like with what they did. Memphis is clearly the better team, but the Timberwolves had them for a couple games that they lost, and that's coaching, and that's just the team being able to come back and having a good culture around them. It looked like Memphis had been there before, and they hadn't, but they're definitely the better team. And it was a really fun series, though. I agree with you. It was fun to see two young teams that it was kind of their first shot at the playoffs to be able to move on. I know Memphis was there last year, but they didn't really have a shot. But it was really fun, though.
Yeah. And that's the first round. I guess we can just roll right into NBA. We want to talk about the NBA
Sure.
first. And that set up those games, those series that we just talked about. Heat Sixers and Bucks Celtics in the East. Suns Mavericks and Warriors Grizzlies in the West. So every top higher seeded team won. You could say that's boring, but I feel like it was pretty much expected in this playoffs. And I guess we'll start with the series that already finished. The Heat beat the Sixers in 6 games. Embiid was out the first 2 games. And James Harden, I don't know, you know, like they make this trade, and Harden and Embiid look like one of the best duos, the best duo in the league for 3 games. And from there, I don't even know. Like James Harden stopped shooting. He stopped, you know, I don't know. He just didn't look like James Harden. And you know, all the memes are flying around, obviously. You know, you trade away Ben Simmons to get James Harden, who did what Ben Simmons did last year in the playoffs that led him to be traded. And James Harden's not going to get traded. But I think we have to come to the realization that Joel Embiid said it in the press conference. He's not the same James Harden anymore. And he doesn't need to be with Embiid on his team, but he can't be what he showed during this playoff run.
Yeah, they needed a lot more from him. And James Harden's 32. I mean, he's getting up there in age, and I think it's kind of the LeBron effect where you expect players to be able to play for longer than they really can. But this is a normal decline in a human for their ability to play a sport. Like, it's not something crazy. And James Harden has had a lot of miles on his body. He was some of the highest usage rating in Houston, and the past like 6-7 years he's been that, and that's a lot to take. He's getting fouled all the time, falling to the floor. He's old, and you were definitely seeing that. And I would like some more aggressiveness, because when he does drive or get in the pick and roll with Embiid, it's very good, and he's still a really good passer. But he didn't show up to the last game. He had one good quarter in this series, and people were like, hey, he's back. He hit like 5 step back threes. Like, it was really impressive, but that's about all he did. And then he was playmaking, sure, but it just wasn't all there. And that's a really, really tough situation to be in, because he's a free agent and they can offer him the super max deal worth $260 million. And he's going to be getting paid $60 million when he's 36, if you do that. Or 37, actually. That's not a good idea. That's probably the worst contract in sports if you do that. At the same time, I don't know what you do, because I don't think just letting him walk is going to make Embiid happy. But that's definitely something that they have to figure out, because I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Because you made this trade kind of expecting that Harden would be better than he played, and then it would just make sense to sign him. But that obviously didn't happen. He had 1 point in the second half of their last game of the season. He proved why he doesn't deserve a supermax. If he's already playing like this, and the supermax would have him locked down with that much money for 4 more years, 5 more years, like, you can't do that. And I feel like James Harden is a guy that is going to want that money, and somebody will give it to him. It's just, should the Sixers? No. But it's will they, that obviously we don't know. But I don't know, because like, you don't want to like run it back, because that team, if you run it back with that same team, I don't know how much improvement you're going to get from Embiid. I don't know how much improvement you're going to get from Tobias Harris.
He's going to get traded for sure.
Tyrese Maxey will take a step up. And I think that's the main thing that would prevent them from signing James Harden, is that they have Tyrese Maxey. And again, there's not much else. And you obviously, it's proven that you need 2 stars to win in the NBA. And I just don't know what direction, because I don't see them getting much out of Tobias Harris. I think that's more of a salary dump.
No, yeah, trade. That's a negative asset for sure.
And then, but if you make room, if you do the salary dump for Tobias Harris, and then you just sign James Harden, that really does nothing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what directions the Sixers go. They're in a limbo here where, we've talked about it on this podcast before. You're good, but you can't win. So there's not much room to improve your team. So they're just in an overall bad situation, I think, as an organization.
Yeah. And actually, James Harden does have a player option for $46 million for next year, but I know that's a ton of money, but a guy like him is going to want to sign a contract for longer than that, just because if he plays even worse than he did this year, next year, nobody's going to give him a super max or anything, right, and you're going to lose out on a lot of money. But I think the second biggest thing that is a big question mark for the Sixers is Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
I don't know why people still think he's a good coach. He's not a good coach.
He is not a good.
Yeah, he blows leads. He takes everything very, very personally when you bring up just facts to him.
Yeah.
Like they lost 2 games in a row to the Raptors. They were up 3-2, and he started bringing up how people still are on him about an Orlando series like 18 years ago or whatever. Like, it's just,
Yeah, and then he goes and like calls his team bums. It's like, dude, you
yeah,
can't do that.
it's just not, it's not something you should see from your coach. And he was talking about like motivating his players in a win or go home game. Like that, I don't know what you're doing to coach if your players are not stepping up like that.
Yeah.
I just think the culture there is a little bit messy. But I mean, on the other side, we haven't even talked about the Heat,
Yeah,
the one
we
seed.
need to. Jimmy Butler is that guy.
Yeah.
He is that guy. Like he I feel like he's a perfect example of like not load management because he plays in the regular season, but he's not trying that hard in the regular season. And when it comes playoff time, he's proven he can go drop 35 on you easily without it even seeming like he's dropping 35 on you. He'll just sneak around and hit pull up, mid-range jumpers. And that's his game. And he's arguably one of the best leaders in the NBA. He just knows how to win. Everywhere he goes, they win. And I think he gets respect, but not respect in the form of like he's a top 10 player in the NBA, which, that comes with the fact that he really doesn't show out until the playoffs. But I think he's fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in his career, he knows what it takes to win, and he knows that you don't need to win 60 regular season games. But he I don't know if he saves it all, but he just kind of chugs along, doesn't get hurt in the regular season, and turns up in the playoffs, and it's proven to work.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about rankings of players in the playoffs, I think people should understand he's probably a top 10 player in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And yes, if you're saying overall, maybe not, but like even that, maybe you have to reevaluate what you consider as top 10. Because if you can't perform in the playoffs, then
how can you be top 10? Yeah.
What are we really doing? But statistically, I mean, I'm not going to get into advanced stats, but I saw something where he's been the most impactful player so far in the playoffs. And the eye test shows that too. He was clearly the best player in this series too, with Embiid and Harden on the other team. And just the whole Heat team and culture is just the exact opposite of the Sixers, where they just, there's no drama there. They just want to win.
Yeah.
Eric Spoelstra is an amazing coach. He's been there before. I mean, he was able to coach LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh as like a very young coach. He knows what he's doing. And just everything on that team is just amazing. Like the scouting for undrafted players. Max Strus is starting now, and he had a better game than any Sixers players yesterday, like in a closeout game.
Shout out UCSB Gaucho, Gabe Vincent.
He's been amazing. Yeah.
He's been good. I mean, Duncan Robinson's undrafted. He's out of the rotation. We can talk about that. But yeah, that organization is just beautiful.
Yeah. Everything is just really good. I mean, there's zero complaints about it. And I mean, I picked the Sixers to win. So I've been disrespecting them too, but they're the 1 seed, and people were just like, they'll probably get out in the second round. No, they beat the Sixers, and yeah, Embiid was injured, but they were the better team the whole way through.
Yeah, and say what you want about the bubble. They were, they took a really good Lakers team to 6 games. They were in the finals 2 years ago. Jimmy Butler carried that team, and they didn't have their full team. And now they have their full team, and they are maybe not steamrolling through, but they've looked really good.
And Kyle Lowry's been out too.
Kyle Lowry's been out. Tyler Hero is phenomenal. I feel like, yeah, he won 6-man, but just his impact doesn't get talked about enough, where he doesn't start. And then as soon as the starters come out, he can keep this team with any other team in the league because he can go and score 20 points in a quarter if he needs to. And having that, and having a guy like Tyler Hero that's willing to come off the bench, I think that just embodies the Heat as a team, the Heat as an organization. That's what you need to win, is you need guys that are willing to come off the bench, that are willing to do less than maybe they're usually asked of to win. And
shout out PJ Tucker too.
Yeah, PJ Tucker.
He just jumps from team to team, and then they just make the finals, win the finals. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Heat beat the Sixers. The other matchup in the East, so the winner plays the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's Bucks Celtics, and I think that this might be the series of the playoffs so far. I mean, both these teams are so good. Like yes, they each have superstars, but as a whole, as teams, they are very good. The Celtics, I mean, we've talked about the Celtics defense, but even without Robert Williams, they're playing phenomenal defense. And you look at the Bucks, you can say the exact same thing. They're missing one of their stars, but they're playing phenomenal. Like, it's 3-2 right now. The Bucks are up. I honestly think, what is it? Is it in Boston next game or is it Milwaukee?
It's Milwaukee.
It's in Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Damn. I won't get my prediction yet, but yeah, I mean, Giannis is the best player in the playoffs. He's the best player in the league. I think he's proving that right now. And,
glad people are agreeing with that now.
Yeah. I mean, I've been saying it for a while, but like, I understand when people say, had said like KD, but when you look at what Giannis does, nobody does it better than him on both sides of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the best player in the league is. You're on one of the best teams. You're 2 MVPs. You won the finals last year. You're in the middle of a finals run right now. And your impact is so insane on both sides of the court. I don't think you can argue at this point right now that Giannis is the best player in the league.
Yeah, it's exciting because we could be seeing a top 5 player of all time, and he's 27. He's technically just entering his prime right now.
Yeah.
And he's got all these accolades. And in this series, people started off by saying like, oh, look at this Celtics defense. It destroyed KD. Now it's destroying Giannis. Giannis he is on a different level than KD.
Yeah.
He's been amazing. I mean, he figured him out. He's taken a lot of shots and he's scoring a lot, and he's playing amazing defense. The Celtics are probably the best equipped team to defend Giannis, and he's still doing this. It's just insane. And without Chris Middleton, you can definitely see that weakness in their game. Chris Middleton, yeah, I mean, he's not the most exciting, but he does what he does very, very well. You can give the ball to him, and he's an efficient way to get a basket basically anytime. And that would be perfect.
Yeah, he scores 20 efficient points a game.
Yeah.
And that's so valuable in the NBA.
And we've seen other guys step up. Brook Lopez has played amazing defense. Bobby Portis has had a bunch of great games, rebounding and scoring the ball. Just last game, he had the game-winning shot with that rebound. It's just been really impressive how well built this team is, especially around Giannis. And Drew Holiday definitely needs to get his credit. He's had a couple bad games this series, and they lose those games. And then when he steps up, they win it. And his defense, I mean, I think he was just as impactful as Marcus Smart this year defensively. And I know Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year. He's deserving for sure. But it was kind of a statement the way that Drew Holiday stole the ball from him twice and won that game 6 or game 5. I mean, it was really, really impressive. His defense is insane. Offensively, he's been taking a lot of shots and being aggressive. I like that. If he doesn't shoot efficiently, they've lost those games. But when he does, it's been really, really impressive. He's surprisingly one of the best ISO players in the league. He's like, he can just move Jason Tatum out of the way. He's so strong. And Jason Tatum's been amazing defensively. So I think probably Drew Holiday is the biggest wild card for the Bucks right now. And they're still just waiting on Chris Middleton to come back.
Yeah. You were saying about how, the Celtics haven't been able to stop Giannis, but they stopped KD. And it's clear there's a way to stop KD. You be physical and aggressive with him, and he can't handle that. He that's just with his game. If you're up on him, he's not going to be able to score much. He's not going to be able to do much. He'll still score, but just being up, physical, aggressive with KD, that can neutralize him to a degree. You try to do that with Giannis, he's going to do it right back to you, and he's stronger than you. But if you sag off, he's hitting his mid-range jumpers this series. Like, he's proving that there's really no way to defend him. And, like you said, the Celtics are the best equipped team to guard Giannis. They have multiple guys that can guard 1 through 5, but Giannis has proven he doesn't fit into any category of, oh, let's do this to him and he won't be as good. Let's do this. You have to do everything, and that's impossible to do. And I think with that, Giannis is the best player in this series, the best player on the planet. I think the Bucks win this series.
I'm taking him in 6.
Yeah.
And also
because it's in Milwaukee, it's going to be tough for the Celtics.
Yeah. Last time we saw him do that, he put up 50 in the finals. I don't expect that, but I expect a really big game. But we also saw Giannis's playmaking, which is something that KD's he's above average at playmaking, but Giannis is a different level at that too. And if you double Giannis, I mean, he can find the open guy, and they've built every single player on the court around Giannis is a shooter.
Yeah.
And that just works perfectly with him. And he's been able to find those guys, averaging, I think, 7 assists a game in this series. I mean, he's been doing absolutely everything.
Yeah. Let's move on to the West. Let's see what's popping over there. Suns Mavericks is a Game 7 series. I did not expect this. I don't think a lot of people expected this, but Luka Doncic is the real deal. We knew this, but playoff Luka is a real thing. He steps up in the biggest moments, and he needs to. Obviously, he doesn't have another star on his team. He doesn't even have, like, a lot of these teams have multiple superstars on his team. He doesn't have another all-star on his team. He is doing this against what everybody has said is the best team in the league by far. And he's holding his own, and it's going to Game 7. Granted, I think the Suns win it in Phoenix in Game 7, but you can't count Luka out.
Yeah, he's been a playoff performer every year he's been in there. He's been one of the best, and it's just we haven't been able to see him for enough time because he's played good opponents in like the first or second round now. But what he's doing is actually historic. He's leading the league in scoring in the playoffs. I mean, he's putting up his insane numbers, and it's leading to winning. Shout out Jalen Brunson. He's going to get a stepped up. He's absolutely. I hope they keep him because I think he works perfectly with him. I think they're a couple pieces away from being a genuine championship contender, but with how young Luka is, I mean, it's really, really impressive what he's doing. Couple of the other guys, Reggie Bullock is apparently his name, which I guess he just hasn't told anyone. He's been amazing, a perfect 3-and-D guy. Dorian Finney-Smith, same exact thing. Maxi Kleba has been knocking down shots. Shout out Frank Ntilikina. I'm sorry, Knicks fans, that you drafted this guy, but he has played amazing defense on Chris Paul, and Chris Paul has been really, really limited in the last few games. I think he's averaging like 7 points a game in his last 3 or 4. The defense on this team is great, and Jason Kidd has been really scrutinized for not being a good coach because of what he did with the Bucks, but he's definitely grown and changed the way that he coaches, and it's been amazing. I mean, he's been a great coach for the Mavs. Defensively and offensively, you kind of just give it to Luka and let him do his thing, but defensively, he's completely changed the mindset of this team. It's been really impressive. Yeah,
the Suns, they're just, I don't even know. Like, the Suns are such a good team, but you'd think that they'd find a way to limit Luka, but they just haven't.
Surprising.
And, they have the coach of the year. They have arguably the best, lead, like a true point guard, I guess you could say, in the NBA. Devin Booker's a star. DeAndre Ayton's an all-star. Like, you should be able to beat a team that has, usually the formula of having one guy and let him do his thing doesn't work in the playoffs. But something is there that is working against the best team in the league. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if they need to adjust their defense towards Luka, but it's tough to beat Luka in a shootout.
I think this is a really tough matchup for them, a younger team, and you would definitely think that they could put Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder on Luka, but they've just been able to switch off those guys. And if you double Luka, I mean, you're making a mistake because he's finding somebody open.
Yeah.
He's probably the best passer to just an open three that you wouldn't expect. You could say Chris Paul too, who's on the other end. But I mean, I don't know what's up with Chris Paul. I really don't, because yeah, they're playing good defense on him, but he just hasn't been aggressive. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know what, but we've never seen Chris Paul have 7 turnovers in a half.
Yeah.
Like that's just so uncharacteristic of him. I think he's had more turnovers than field goals made in 3 of the games in this series. I don't think that's ever happened. Definitely not. But it's just really weird because I don't really have an answer for it. I still think the Suns win, and I think a lot of these questions are just like, they figured it out.
Right.
But I mean, they got taken to 6 against the Pelicans. Yes, Booker was out, but still, they're got taken to 7 against the Mavs, and they got a chance to get eliminated. I mean, they're not unstoppable, and we've definitely seen that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I guess the one thing that I can think of is just this team is under a lot more pressure than last year's team was. Last year's team, yeah, they were, up there in terms of seeding, but it was like the first time that they made the playoffs in however many years. Nobody really expected a finals run out of them necessarily. But I mean, I think the Lakers might have been favorited in the first round of that series.
I think they were, yeah.
Granted, there were injuries, but they came into this playoffs as the absolute favorite to win it all. And Booker, Ayton, even Chris Paul. Yes, Chris Paul is a veteran, but they've never been seen as the finals favorite. You need to win, and if you don't win, it's a disappointment. And that could weigh into, the struggles that's getting to them. Again, they'll all say that's not the case because they're NBA players and that's what they do. But you can't ignore the fact that this is the first time for a lot of those guys that they've been like, it's NBA finals or bust at this point. So that could play into it. I don't know. That being said, we both have the Suns winning game 7.
Yeah. Role players have to step up though.
Yeah.
Landry Shamet, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, they've all not been hitting their shots, and the Mavs role players definitely have. So that's a big thing that we got to consider.
Moving on to the last series, Warriors Grizzlies. This has been an interesting series because, I mean, all playoffs, Ja has been good, and then he gets hurt. Warriors are up 3-1, and everyone's just kind of expecting, okay, I mean, without Ja, Warriors are moving on. And then the Grizzlies win by 40 or whatever it was.
Up 50
they were up 50 at one point. I don't know. Like, Ja, I'm rooting for the Grizzlies in this playoffs. Ja is my favorite player, so my favorite team's out. I'll go for the team that my favorite player's on. And watching this team, it's so interesting because if you say, like, I don't know, Ja, the team has been better without Ja than they have been with Ja, but you can't go out and say, oh, they should just sit Ja even if he's healthy, because that's disrespectful, because Ja brings an extra element to that team. But I think what the Grizzlies proved in their game without Ja, where they won by 30 or whatever it was, is that the Warriors can't handle big lineups. They ran out Steven Adams and Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark played, and they can't deal with that because that forces them to play Kevon Looney. And that's one elite offensive option, whoever they take off of the court. And that's why I think the Warriors could run into trouble if they do advance. Draymond's a good defender, but if you put a big man down there, it changes the complexity of their entire lineup, not even just having Draymond guard a big man. You have to, this quote unquote death lineup can't be on the floor if there's a true power forward and a true center on the court, because then they're getting bullied. So I don't know. I think Ja is out for sure for game 6.
Yeah, he's done for the year.
Is that, have they said that? Sure. Or it's like doubtful that he'll return?
It's doubtful, but also it's like there. I don't think there's any way. I think they're just kind of hiding how bad it is.
Yeah. Um, but I
Maybe.
don't
I don't
know.
know.
We'll see. I'm very interested to see the game 6 is tonight, right?
Yep.
Friday. Um, I think they have to trot out that big lineup again and see if it works again. And if it does, that's trouble for the Warriors.
Yeah. I think the Grizzlies are a very unique team where they can go big and still be really fast.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty hard combo for the Warriors to deal with. I mean, the athleticism on that team is the only thing that is lacking for them. They have everything else, and Andrew Wiggins maybe is their most athletic guy. Like it's
Yeah.
tough for them. Um, they have everything else, but it's just showing that this Warriors team is not the same as like a 2016 team. Not
Yeah.
they're not that powerhouse anymore. Everybody's older. Everybody's a little less athletic. Klay Thompson, I hate to say it, but he's been a bit of a shot chucker this
Yeah.
series. It's a little bit annoying to me seeing him just shoot every single time. I mean, the offense is coming to him and those shots are great and he's knocking those ones down, but he'll just get the ball and shoot it pretty much every single time he gets it. And that's not really the Warriors' way of playing. That's why they've been so good, is the way that they move the ball. It's just been a little bit weird. I know he's been injured, but it just seems like he should take a little bit of a step back. Like, people are playing better than him. Jordan Poole has been better than him. I'm not saying Klay Thompson needs to like come off the bench or anything. It's just take 4 or 5 less shots that are super heavily contested, and I think give those shots to someone else and find a better one. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Steven Adams, him coming back has been amazing. I think he's got like 5 or 6 offensive rebounds both games he played. Just a big man down low. Jaren Jackson got into the paint last
He
game.
needs to do that more. He wasn't doing that the first 3 games of the series.
He was knocking down threes last game, but it is so frustrating watching him just at the perimeter. He's like 6'11" with like a 7-something wingspan. Nobody's going to guard you when Draymond is not on you. Nobody can guard you. And it's a little frustrating seeing that. I could see the Warriors playing Kevon Looney a little bit more, just a big who does his job really, really well. I could see how that could help limit the impact of Steven Adams. But I also, big shout out to Tyus Jones.
He's been good.
One of the best backup point guards in the league, and I think he's going to get a bag this year too. I think teams are going to recognize how impactful he is every single time he starts. He doesn't turn over the ball. He shoots super efficiently. I think that type of point guard has become really underrated, and people look at just statistics and points you make. I mean, I think 8 assists and 2 turnovers is just as impressive as like 10 and 4 or something. It's just become a little underrated for a point guard to do point guard things. And when you can still shoot the ball and be this efficient, I just think it's really impactful. So yeah, I mean, anybody who says John Morant not playing is better for the team doesn't know what they're talking about. But I think a big part of that is just how deep this team is. And this series has been awesome. Like, I'm rooting for the Grizzlies too. If I were to pick what I think is going to happen, I think the Warriors beat them in game 6. I don't know if it's going to be destroying, but I just think they're the better team, especially without Ja. But we'll see.
Yeah, I really don't know how to predict this, because who's to say that it's not going to be a repeat of game 5 if it's the same lineups that go out there? I don't know. I mean, yes, it is in Golden State.
Warriors crowd is different.
Right. I guess, yeah. If it goes 7, I think the Grizzlies win. But the Warriors very well. I think that's the right pick, is the Warriors in 6.
Yeah, I think honestly, if the Mavs move on, they're beating the Warriors or Grizzlies. But
really,
I just don't think either of these teams really have it. I think the Suns are gonna win this conference, but I just don't think any other team is really on their level right now. There's a lot of holes I'm seeing in the Warriors game.
Yeah. Do we want to do I mean, we're kind of deep already into this. Do we want to do prediction for the rest of the finals, or we want to save that for next week?
We might as well save it.
All right,
We don't
we'll
know who's
save it.
going, so we
That's
already
true.
gave our picks for now.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's move on to our last little segment. MLB, Major League Baseball, 1 month in. Our biggest surprises, our biggest disappointments. A lot has happened, and a lot of weird stuff has happened, and a lot of expected stuff has happened. So what we won't be mentioning is that, you know, the Dodgers are good, the Reds are bad, you know, stuff like that. That is like, all right, we don't really need to mention that.
Reds
But
5-5 in their last 10 games. They're coming back.
Heating up. I'll start with probably my biggest surprise this year has been the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're 21-12. They are half a game back of the Astros, who are 21-11, have won 10 straight. The Angels, and kind of tagged onto this, is Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward has been the best player on the Angels this year. They have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and Taylor Ward has been their best player. He's hitting 367 with an OPS of basically 1,200 through 79 at-bats. He got 7 home runs, 17 RBIs. This guy is mashing the ball out of nowhere. And you can look at this team and say they're getting so much production from so many different guys on that offense. Trout is MVP candidate. Shohei, MVP candidate. Taylor Ward, MVP candidate. It's a month into the season, but those are just 3 facts. Brandon Marsh has been good. Jared Walsh has been good. Rendon has shown flashes. I mean, he hit a home run left-handed. But just there are pieces all around this offense, and the pitching has been good. Syndergaard has been good. Reed Detmers just threw a no-hitter. This team is piecing it together, and they're having kind of this almost storybook kind of beginning to the season. You got a no-hitter, you got some walk-offs. Like this team is fun to watch, and it's great. I love when the Angels are good. I want the Angels to be good.
Yeah, I think most people want to see Mike Trout and now Shohei actually in the postseason, because it's just crazy we haven't been given that. And everybody has seen that the Angels can be good. Like, how do you have the top 2 players and you don't make the postseason? Like, how not even a wild card? That's insane. But it's just, I think it comes down to pitching a lot of the time, and their pitching was just awful, and now it's okay. It's been good at times. But it's just awesome to see that, because I'm really hoping Mike Trout can stay healthy. That's been a question mark the last few years, but it just seems like everything's been going right for them. And I love that, because I just want to see this team succeed. They haven't in a while, and I don't dislike anybody on this team. Like, I want to see them all win. They all seem like fun guys. Shohei and Mike Trout, that pairing is so fun. I love to see that. But yeah, it's just been fun. I like it.
Yeah.
Mike Trout he's showing people he's the best player in the world again, which is fun too.
Yeah, we got the 2 LA teams and the 2 New York teams basically dominating, which is pretty interesting. On the other end of the spectrum, the Boston Red Sox are 11-20. They're in last place in the American League East. Yes, the American League East, the same division that is home to the Baltimore Orioles. The Red Sox are 11-20. They have a -20 run differential. They're 12 games back of the Yankees. Granted, we just said, the Yankees I think they have the best record in the league right now. That division's good, but nobody expected the Red Sox to be this bad. It's questioning. They've gotten production from Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers.
That's it.
That's about it. Trevor Story, your huge free agent splash. Terrible. Yes. He's barely over the Mendoza line. This man has not been good. There's no consistent bullpen options there, and the starting pitching has just been and you can't support a bad offense with an pitching staff.
Yeah, when I looked at this record, I was like, oh, their pitching must be awful. It's the Red Sox, but it hasn't been a good, like, at all the pitching has not been great, but
it hasn't been what's killing them.
yeah, it's slightly above average, and they're still this bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, it's genuinely it. Every single other player has been pretty bad. And I expected a drop off from Trevor Story, but not even close to this.
No.
I don't think that's the Coors effect. I think he's just having a really bad slump. Because you can't just be this bad right away. But I could definitely see him figuring it out. It's just very concerning that this many players are performing this poorly, even though your pitching has been okay. It's weird.
I think this is legitimate cause for worry. With other teams that have the pedigree of the Red Sox, maybe not. But because they're in this division, where 3 teams ahead of them are currently ahead of them are going to be in playoff spots, you can't fall this far behind early. You have to figure it out at some point. You can't be 12 games back. And that puts you in a hole that's really tough to get out of come midsummer when you're playing against these teams for the majority of your schedule. And, you don't know, they might figure it out, but they just have not looked good. And teams go into offensive slumps, but not this bad and not this detrimental to their record.
Yeah. I just don't see how it can all get fixed. I mean, I could see them ending up 500 or something. I don't see how that's not a possibility. But yeah, in this division, it's going to be really hard to even make the playoffs, especially falling this far back. Like if you're under the Orioles, I don't know. That's just sad at that point.
Yeah. Now we each have a player. Mine is on the good end of the spectrum and yours is on the bad end of the spectrum. We'll start with mine because we just went bad. We'll go back to good. Eric Hosmer is currently second in the batting average race behind his teammate, Manny Machado, who we could talk about also, but that's less of a surprise because we know Manny Machado is an all-star caliber player. He's a superstar, MVP candidate early. But Eric Hosmer was going to get traded like a few weeks before the season. It was like almost a done deal. They were looking for any team to take him, literally for nothing. They just wanted to get rid of him, get rid of his contract, because they traded for Luke Voit, and it was basically almost written in the sand. Eric Hosmer, you're out of here. And he responded to that by saying, oh, you're keeping me for a little bit? Might consider trading me at the deadline? Let me hit 367 with a 984 OPS and 21 RBIs, as this team is now one of, I think, 6 or 7 teams with 20 wins this year. Like, he's putting them in such a weird position because they wanted him gone. And the plan was to have him gone by the middle of this season. But you can't let this guy go. You're having a productive season. Granted, 20-12 is an interesting record for them because they're winning a lot of really close games. And they have not, they're winning against really bad teams. So that record can be looked at a couple different ways, but still they're 20-12. You can't, 20 and whatever. You can't, there's no way around that. Eric Hosmer is proving, hey, you can't trade me. So I don't know if this is necessarily sustainable to have a guy like Eric Hosmer hitting 370, but it's certainly needed for the Padres while Fernando Tatis is out. I feel like he's kind of supplying that production. We'll see if it continues, but it's almost like this is exactly what the Padres needed for the couple months while their number one stud is out.
Yeah, he's been really impressive. And sorry to Luke Voit. He's not having a good year, but that sucks, man. He cannot find a starting role. I know he could DH, but he's been pretty bad because, I don't know, maybe he's just not getting the reps he needs. But yeah, I did not expect this out of him at all. But moving on, I guess I'll take the sad part, but I drafted him in fantasy. I thought this guy was going to be not as good as last year, but I thought he was going to not have 0 home runs so far.
Yeah.
That's Marcus Semien. Signed a huge deal with the Rangers. In 29 games so far, he has amounted 25 total bases, 165 batting average, a 446 OPS, 0 home runs. I mean,
That's so terrible.
he's got 8 RBIs so far. It's really, really rough. And it's, you can talk about him just last year having this insane season. Yeah, but 2 seasons before that, the last one that was a full season, he finished 3rd in MVP voting. He had 33 home runs, 92 RBIs, OPS of 892. I mean, I don't understand what has happened to him. Even in spring training, he hit 3 home runs. So I mean, a bit of this is just not getting it done yet. And he's gonna not be this bad, but oh my God, like it is terrible. I don't really have much of an explanation, to be honest with you. I mean, sure, the Blue Jays stadium is smaller, but not like it's just impossible to hit home runs anywhere else. 45 home runs last year. Now it's 0.
That's the record. He broke the
Most.
record for most by a second baseman.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing has been going right. I know the Rangers offense isn't good, but it's not absolutely atrocious. And to have
that also
9,
shouldn't matter. Like,
yeah,
you have to be hitting better than 165.
yeah, you're a
it
part of
matters.
that also.
Yeah, it matters for RBIs, but other than that, you can't blame your offense on hitting 165.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a 1/6 of the way into the season so far, right? So if you're taking that into account, he should have like 8, 9 home runs by now if he's staying that, like almost 20 or 30 RBIs. Everything is down, and I don't expect that to stay the same, but wow. I mean, giving him a big contract and this is what you get so far, that's very concerning.
Yeah, he's making $175 million over 7 years, and
It's a long time.
His batting average isn't 175. That's never good. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, there's no explanation for this. He shouldn't be this bad. I expected regression, but nobody expected this regression. Yeah, I don't know if he doesn't turn it around by the end of May, or that's very troubling. 2 months into the year and you're still this bad after the season you had last year. The Rangers are really hurting in the pockets if that's the case.
Fantasy team is struggling. It's tough.
My last little surprise, or our last surprise, in a positive light, are the Arizona Diamondbacks. And cool it. They're 17-15. But the main thing I want to talk about with the Diamondbacks is they have the best the best. They are currently, performance-wise, have one of the 3 best starting pitching ace rotations in baseball. Merrill Kelly through 7 starts has a 1.71 ERA. Madison Bumgarner through 7 starts, 1.78 ERA. And Zach Gallen through 5 starts has a 0.95 ERA.
Sheesh.
They are allowing nothing. That
crazy.
Offense isn't that good, but that pitching, when you have either of those three guys on the mound, they're winning those games. And they're 17-15. This isn't going to amount to anything. I hate to burst their bubble. I think Ketel Marte could get traded. David Peralta could get traded. They're going to be a seller at the deadline. They could leverage all 3 of these pitchers at the deadline. We'll see, but I like it. I like seeing bad teams play well. Again, ERAs under 2 and under 1 for Zach Gallen's case, not sustainable. If anything's unsustainable in the big leagues, it's a bad pitcher having an ERA under 2. Especially in the National League West. It's going to be tough for them to keep that up, but it's been a great story so far.
Yeah, definitely unsustainable, like you said, but who cares? I mean,
yeah,
just have fun. Like this is not going to happen for the Diamondbacks for a while. 3 pitchers. I knew it was good. I didn't know it was that good. Madison Bumgarner, one of my least favorite players, to be honest with you, but hey, he's going off. So shout out to the Diamondbacks, because it's tough seeing your team be bad for a long time. And even having, I mean, I don't think you should have any hope if you're a fan, but having any positives is a good thing. And hey, maybe you can swing these guys for some picks or something, some fun young guys. Having guys perform is always fun. And it's cool to see a team that we had no expectations for be above 500. So
Yeah.
I like it. That division's crazy right now, even though it's not going to stay like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, every team is above 500. That's ridiculous. Let's talk about another division. We had a team down for this, but I want to talk about the whole division because the division is full of surprises, disappointments, a couple things. The National League East. We'll start with the Mets. The Mets are the second, tied for the second best team in baseball in terms of winning percentage. It's the Yankees and the Dodgers, and the Mets are tied at 667 winning percentage because teams have played different number of games. It's all weird. They've looked really good.
It's been fun. I like the Mets. I picked the Mets to win this division. When DeGrom went out, I thought, hey, I mean, that's gonna be tough until he comes back. Scherzer's insane. That pitching is really good. The offense has kind of been closer to what we thought that they could be. And last year and the years before that, it was like, hey, you got all these names, but they're not performing. They're starting to perform, and it's really fun. Shout out Frankie. He's having a good season again. Not at an MVP level, but compared to last season, I mean, he's been really good. It's just a fun group
Pete
of
Alonso's
guys.
playing well.
Pete Alonso, yeah. It's just great to see that they have all these guys. They've spent this money. Finally, it's paying off. And I'm excited for DeGrom to come back because if this team is this good already and you're bringing back by far the best pitcher in the league, please stay healthy. But that's gonna be tough to score off of him.
Yeah, Chris Bassett's been really good. Cookie Carrasco has been very good.
Love Cookie.
That team, there's a very long way to go, but that team's tough to beat if you have their top 4 rotation members going in games 1 through 4. And then kind of the disappointment, I would say, is the Braves. That was my pick to win this division. They're 15-17. I'm not as worried about this one as I am the Red Sox because, well, number one, the NL East is not the AL East. It's a good division, but it's not the AL East. And most of the reason for their kind of troubles, I guess you could say, is just subpar offensive play. And they've got plenty of proven offensive weapons that the law of averages will come into play. Their best hitter in terms of batting average is Matt Olson with 269. That's not good. But Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Acuna just came back. So you got to factor that into it. Dansby Swanson has been very good, but he's shown flashes. Travis d'Arnaud has been pretty solid, actually. Ozzy Albies hasn't been as Ozzy Albies as late. He hasn't been terrible. But I mean, just naming off all those guys, they're gonna figure it out. I don't know if they can necessarily take over the Mets with how good they're looking right now, but I'm not as worried about the Braves as I am, say, the Red Sox or another team that's underperforming.
Yeah, I'm super glad Acuna's back. I mean, he's shown flashes. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time before he's the same guy again. But yeah, this team has been concerning because I wouldn't have thought that their offense would get off to this slow of a start. And the amount of people that they have who can have so much better, just anything, averages, whatever, than what they're having. I mean, it's got to come back up, but it's weird. Definitely not as concerned as like the Red Sox, like you said, right. But it's still very weird to see. But yeah, the pitching has been okay. I think Max Fried is having a great season again.
Yeah, Max Fried's playing well.
But yeah, I also want to cover the Phillies really quickly, just because I know that I think it was Brent's pick, but another team that could have been number one, and their defense we knew was going to be bad. Oh my God, some of the sequences that you see from this team is so awful,
terrible.
It's pretty funny, to be honest, but
defense and bullpen.
Fan. Yeah, they tried their best yesterday.
They tried. Yeah, but I mean, go ahead. Finish what you got on the Phillies.
I mean, the offense has been okay. Bryce Harper, Nicholas Castellanos, they're doing what they're doing. JT Realmuto has been okay. I mean, they got a few offensive guys that Kyle Schwarber's even back. He's been all right. They did what I felt was good for their team, and it seems like it's paying off in the ways they thought it would. But the things that are bad about this team are really, really, really bad. that bullpen is atrocious. It's bad. It seems like they had the 6-run lead against the Dodgers, and I still was
Yeah, it
like,
was 7-1.
I don't know if 7-1. I was concerned still. And guess what? They gave up. They tied the game, so
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's bad. But yeah, I mean, it's something that can definitely get better because I don't see how they don't make a trade or something for a bullpen piece. But hey, they didn't really do it in the offseason, so maybe. But seems very fixable. This defense is not. It's just bad. But I just wanted to. It's some of the things that happen in these games are really funny.
The Phillies were 82-20 last year, and it left fans saying, "Great, our offense is good. Let's get bullpen. Let's get a defensive piece, something to help us out in the offseason." And the Phillies did the opposite. They got Castellanos and Schwarber, 2 great bats, doesn't add anything to what they needed. And we're seeing exactly that play out. The offense is fine. They've got nothing else. Like, you have to be a multifaceted team to be good. You look at the good teams in the league. The Mets, they've got a Gold Glover. The Yankees, they've got Gold Glovers. The Dodgers, they've got Gold Glovers. And then you look at their bullpens. The back ends of those bullpens are so strong, they can hold on to the leads that the offense provides, that the defense can save runs for. You can't be, it's not, baseball's so unique in that you can't, you look at maybe basketball, you look at maybe football. Teams can build themselves on one side of the ball and be playoff caliber teams. You can be an offensive minded football team and make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs did it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. You can't do that in baseball. You need to be good at everything to win. And the Phillies are good at one thing. So again, that they need to make a trade for a bullpen arm. Somebody that can bridge the gap from Zach Wheeler to Corey Knebel in the 9th. Knebel's been shaky, but he's been okay. And defense, it's tough. It's really tough in baseball to pick up a guy for defense because that leaves you maybe with a liability on offense. The best players can do it all. Aaron Judge this year has been really good. Mookie Betts is kind of the first that comes to mind. Jose Ramirez. It's guys that can do it all, and it's tough to get those guys. Those are pretty much the most coveted guys in the league. You're not going to be able to trade for them. But you gotta figure. I don't know what comes with that, but it's so clear what their weaknesses are, and they just didn't fix it.
Yeah, I don't really, honestly, having bad defenders out there, sure, it's gonna hurt your team, but it's so much more beneficial to just get good pitching, and
Right.
they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, their starting pitchers aren't great, but like they're not atrocious, and it's the bullpen that gives up so many runs. Like it just seems like, I mean, yeah, like you'd love a guy like Schwarber or something, but honestly, I would trade him. Not saying they should, but like if you had a choice between him and a bullpen guy to pick up in the offseason, I don't see why you wouldn't pick up the bullpen guy. And it just seems like something that can easily be fixed because it's not like bullpen guys are just so hard to come by. It's just I don't know how they don't have anyone. Like, yeah, Corey Knebel's not fantastic, but it's the guys in between the starting pitcher and him that give up like it's like 3 or 4 runs a game. It's crazy. It's probably not that high, but it seems like every time I look at it, it's that high. But it seems very fixable.
Yeah. Just toss it in there. One of my biggest disappointments this year is Trevor Bauer's suspension, but we don't have that's old news. 324 games is insane.
World of Sports podcast canceled.
That's not even a cancelable thing. I feel like 324 games. Marcelo Ozuna was found guilty, got 20 games.
That's okay. Yeah,
it's okay.
It's pretty bad.
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, that's it from us. It was a long episode, but we needed a long episode. It's been a while. Thank you so much for listening, watching, Jason. I don't know if you stayed for baseball, but if you did, shout out. Chris and Karen, I don't know if you guys are out there. Shout out. Yeah, thanks so much for listening. This has been the World of Sports Podcast, episode 74. We appreciate you. And for my co-host, Logan Ring, my name is Diego Sandoval, signing off.
Signing off.